The farmers struggling to keep their businesses afloat after a record-breaking 18 months of rain.
While it may be lovely weather for ducks, it's less lovely for businesses like this garden centre on the Wirral, where the wet weather's hit sales of plants and seeds.
On the weather theme, you'll know this, we've been hearing a lot about wet weather, rainy weather across the UK recently, but now the National Farmers Union is warning it could be putting our ability to produce food at risk.
And farmers are struggling to have crops in the ground, keep them going, and also sailing livestock is being affected. Well, our rural affairs correspondent, Lucy Vladev, has made sure she's with livestock at a farm in Warwickshire. Lucy, morning to you. You've got company this morning.
Good morning. Yes, it's lambing season and it's a critical time for sheep farmers. They need lambs like this to be born in the sheds, but they also need them to be able to go outside to grow and to graze. But it's also a really important time for crops as well. Many of the seeds that go in the ground at this time of year become the things like bread that we all eat. So what is going on at the moment? Well, the ground is soaked, and if you imagine walking through a muddy field squelching in your Wellington boots, you can imagine how hard it is for a seed to grow through it or an animal to graze on it. So there are, of course, financial implications, but there are also mental health implications as well. It's been a hard time for farmers.
This field isn't going to have anything in this year. There's no way you can get a crop in that.
You really do question why you do it.
A really hard time for a long time.
We've been putting on little coats on some of the newborn lambs to help protect them from the rain.
Most fields haven't dried out since last year as the UK experienced its wettest 18 months on record.
That's a good girl. Hey? How's your tummy? Are you nice and full?
Rachel farms land here in North Wales.
On a scale of 1 to 10, we're probably, at the moment, how wet our land is probably about a 15.
She's been forced to keep 300 of her ewes in lambing sheds on expensive bought-in feed.
To date, we're probably riding at about at least between probably about £5,000 and £8,000 increased cost for this sort of wet winter, exacerbated in the last month or so. Like, what can you do? It's not so much about perhaps the money, it's more about when you literally haven't got anywhere for the animals to go, or you're really trying to shift them around the farm, it has a massive impact. So yeah, the mental health burden is pretty colossal.
Over in Gloucestershire, it's a similar picture. This was Debbie Wilkins' field 3 months ago. It's still underwater.
We can't stop the water coming, but we can change how we manage the fields to try and be more resilient to flooding. But even with that this year, we're still not being able to graze the fields when we should be able to.
It's so bad that agricultural organisations and the National Farmers Union are warning of a drastic reduction in crops, saying a crisis is building for both food supplies and farmers' finances.
It will have a financial implication, yes, definitely. And there's also the implications from actually when the floods were high and they knocked fences down, they destroyed crops that I'm going to have to reseed, there's rubbish that I'm going to have to pick up on the fields. So there's more than just the lack of being able to go there, it's the fact that things aren't growing and I have to do repairs.
This week, the government announced its compensation plans for farmers in England affected by flooding over the winter. But many say it's not enough.
It'll go a small way, but it's not going to make an inroad at all into what I have to do to put right and buy extra food and things.
The government says they've launched the initial phase to ensure grants reach farmers as quickly as possible and are now looking to expand. But in the meantime, farmers are warning that unless rapid action is taken to support those producing the food on our plates, the wider public will soon feel the impacts. Well, joining me now is Bizza Walters, who's part of this family farm. Bizza, just talk to me first of all about the past few months. What's it been like?
It has been incredibly wet. I've never seen the farm so wet, and neither has Dad. He's been here 60-odd years. We can't get machinery out onto the fields, we can't feed the sheep, we can't turn them out, hence why these lambs here are still in. Normally they'd be out in the field now enjoying sunshine and green grass, but unfortunately they're stuck in here because we just can't turn them out. They won't do very well, and it's just too wet for them.
And the impacts of this, I mean, obviously you can't get the lambs outside, but there are wider impacts as well, aren't there?
Yes, definitely. And I think the biggest one would be mental health at the moment. We work all year round to ensure that our crops and our animals are the best they can be. So when you're going out in the morning to check them and you've got lambs hunched over, ewes aren't milking, you've got ewes that are lame because it's just so wet and it's affecting their feet, it's actually quite soul destroying. At the end of the day, it's a business, it's got to be profitable, but when it's affecting your mental health and the welfare of your animals, that comes before anything.
And, I mean, we're all optimistic that it will dry up, but after so many months of rain, what happens if it doesn't?
I don't really want to think about it, to be honest. I think we're fortunate enough that we've got these lambs on the ground and we will make some sort of money off it. But you look at these arable people that have got nothing planted and it's a real worry for them because if they've not got any diversification or any livestock, they are in big trouble.
Right, Bizza, well, thank you very much for talking to us. So a lot of people watching the weather forecasts for many, many days to come.
Absolutely. Lucy, thanks so much. That's Lucy Vladev there for us. We've got Rachel Hallis, who's the Vice President of the National Farmers Union, with us this morning. Good morning to you. As we were watching Lucy there, you said, "I feel your pain."
Yeah.
Explain.
So we're a different type of farm. We're a hill farm, so we don't start lambing our sheep until later on. Some of our sheep lamb outside. It's the nature of the animal themselves. They don't like to be inside. But we also have some sheep lambing inside. So the ones that are inside, as they lamb, you literally allow them to mother up, just like any person would with their own child. They have that bonding time together, 24 hours, everything's good, everything's cooking, everything's fine, they're going in the right direction. You pop them out in the grass and on they live their life. Everything's good. When you've got wet, cold conditions like we've got now, with standing water in fields, you can't put those lambs out. So you end up with a backlog of sheep in your sheds that you literally have nowhere to go with, which is not healthy for them. When you're lambing outside, you end up with sheep that are having newborn lambs outside. Now, don't get me wrong, these hill sheep are really resilient. But again, when they're newborn and it's cold and it's wet and they're lying in damp conditions, they don't thrive, and that's when you have losses. And I feel your pain. I feel the pain because my daughter the other morning went out and she had to deal with the consequences of that.
Which was what?
You go out in the morning, you check the sheep, and you go around and you unfortunately find that there are sheep baby lambs that have not survived the night.
Because there's the land is too. Because obviously we're seeing a lot of pictures as you're talking there of flat land, which has flood water in it.
Different.
Now,
Yes.
you're talking about hillsides, so there's just too much water retention in the ground.
Literally, I know it sounds ridiculous. So you've got your major problems of flooding on flatland, where literally the water has got nowhere to go because the river systems are so full. But also on hills, yes, the water goes past, but we've actually got the underground aquifers are so full that we've actually now got springs springing out of the ground that you haven't seen before. I know on our farm, there's water in places that we have never, ever seen before. So that ground is always saturated.
Can I ask you, I mean, I don't know how long what farming background you have in terms of how many generations, but I'm assuming this can't be the first time that farms have been faced with the challenges around a lot of rain. I'm just trying to, and I'm not dismissing it for a moment. I'm just trying to think, what do you hark back to in terms of how do you cope?
If I'm very honest with you, on our own farm, it's my husband's family's farm. He can't remember it ever being this bad in his lifetime. I'm from a farming background, not too far from where I am now. Again, I can't remember when it's been this bad before. I think the thing is this time, it's not in pockets around the country. It's literally blanket across the country. This rain started, it's ridiculous, really. We're talking about this. We're in Ireland, it rains. It started in July and it just hasn't stopped. It's just kept on going and kept on going.
So, you're right, we're in Ireland, it rains, you know. So no one can stop the rain.
No.
OK.
I don't think that'd be good either.
And so what is the answer in terms of the support you need? It's all very well saying, OK, we need more support with feed or funding, you know, like that, but that can't, that's not a realistic model, is it? Because the weather will happen, changes will happen.
I completely agree. It's not a realistic ask at all. What we're actually saying is, this is a big picture, is this. If this is the new normal, then we're going to all have to adapt to it. All of us, not just us farmers, everybody's going to have to adapt to this.
Because we're going to feel the
everybody's going to feel the costs. So at the moment, there is a methodology that protects houses quite correctly. Absolutely agree with that. But then we've got to start looking at, well, what is the value of productive land? So what is the value? How do you protect that? Now, there are amazing infrastructures in this country, amazing. I was with a load of farmers yesterday. There's things called internal drainage boards, where farmers work together. They ensure that the water courses are flowing freely. They pump the water from one bit to another. It's really clever. But that infrastructure was put in, some of it in Victorian times. We need investment in that infrastructure. It can't come from within the agricultural community itself.
Can I go back a step, Rachel?
Yes.
Is it a straightforward equation that if there's not more help, people will be paying more money for all the things that farmers produce? Is that a very straightforward equation?
The logical answer would be yes. Retailers will find a way to fill those shelves, but perhaps they will go and buy it from elsewhere, as in abroad. Now, that's OK, you're going to fill the shelves. Look at what's going on around the world. We are not the only country that's facing extreme flooding right now. North Europe is. We've then got extreme drought in Spain. So there's lots of things going on globally. And then when we look at, you know, getting food from A to B now is not quite as easy as it used to be. So there are repercussions. And if we want growth within this country, if we truly want to grow our UK food security and be able to produce the food that this country needs, then we need serious investment. Growth is what the country needs, and we need to help that investment. Rachel, very interesting hearing your insight, and you work a farm yourself. Rachel Hallis, Vice President of the National Farmers Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you.